I've had my suspicions that Capcom was up to something for a few years now, but Sunbreak has all but confirmed it. Let me explain the story of how Capcom has been altering the way we look at Monster Hunter, and how Sunbreak could be the culmination of Capcom's decade-long plan. So let me start by listing off the key aspects of a few monsters. Things will become more and more clear as I go, and you'll probably be able to guess the trend pretty quickly. Let's start with an iconic monster that made its debut in Monster Hunter World, the Anjanath. This monster was the first real difficulty spike in World, and that's primarily due to its aggressive nature, wide-reaching attacks, and exceptionally hard-hitting finishers. But it's that last part that I want to focus on. This attack is only possible when Anjanath concentrates fire in his neck like this. This is an important sign to pay attention to, as it reveals a huge weakness that Anjanath has. This charge allows for Anjanath to shoot fire, but it also allows the hunter to get a knockdown and some damage if they land enough attacks on that spot. Not only does this damage the monster and leave it wide open, but it also prevents Anjanath from using that fire breath that I mentioned earlier. So that's one monster, but let's move on to a slightly more clear example. How about World's flagship, Nergigante? Nergigante is a fan favorite, and that's not much of a surprise. This is an amazing hunt with fantastic music and just a genuinely threatening looking monster. I think World did an incredible job at really demonstrating how powerful this monster was. I mean, it tried to eat this. I'm not sure how that was supposed to work, but sure. Nergigante is overwhelmingly aggressive, built like a semi, and has spikes all over because the ability to wrestle an Elder Dragon wasn't quite menacing enough. But the one mechanic that really brings this hunt together are in fact those spikes. See, when they're white, Nergigante is at his most vulnerable. Hit them enough and they'll break, leading to a knockdown. However, if you don't hit them enough, you'll be punished. The spikes gradually turn black, and once darkened like this, they become too hard to pierce. To make matters worse, when all of his spikes are fully black, he'll let out a roar and use his signature dive attack. This all comes together to create an exhilarating hunt where you rush this terrifying creature in a desperate attempt to prevent its most devastating attack. Lastly, there's Magnum Olo. By this point, you almost certainly know what I'm talking about, but this'll pretty much spell it out. Magnum Olo is the flagship of Monster Hunter Rise and one of my personal favorite monsters. Magnum Olo's main gimmick is Hellfire. It's this explosive powder that he uses to add an extra element of danger to his attacks. And it's what really makes this hunt special. Similar to Anjanath and Nergigante, Magnum Olo's biggest strength is also one of his biggest weaknesses. When parts of Magnum Olo begin to glow pink, it means he's readying his strongest attack and you're officially on a timer to stop it. Land enough attacks on one specific pink part and it'll explode, dealing a hefty amount of damage and causing a knockdown. Don't deal enough damage, however, and Magnum Olo will run around the field creating explosions everywhere before finishing with an explosive dive. So what's the trend between all three of these monsters? Aggression. Each of these monsters rewards the hunter for being aggressive, and it's something they took to a totally new level in Sunbreak. Which is why I say it may be the culmination of something Capcom has been planning for a while. Anjanath's fire breath encourages the player to run in and stop it, along with dealing extra damage. The same rule applies to Nergigante's spikes and subsequent dive, and Magnum Olo's Hellfire. But Sunbreak has taken this a step further. Capcom is no longer just rewarding aggression, they're also hitting the subscribe button. So this is the part where Capcom is going a step further. Instead of just rewarding aggression, they're punishing patience in a very clear and direct way. Anomaly monsters are the endgame content in Sunbreak, and the game outright tells you to be aggressive against them. If you hit these glowing red spots enough, they'll explode and deal a burst of damage to the monster. Deal enough damage and the monster will get knocked out of this anomaly state and basically just become a punching bag for a little while. However, on the opposite end of the spectrum, if you don't land enough hits, the monster will literally explode. This is a massive attack that can be nearly impossible to dodge if you don't know it's coming well in advance. It does an absurd amount of damage, often stuns the hunter, and is basically a guaranteed cart. Now, while I don't think we're gonna have anomalies in future games, I do think they confirm a suspicion I've had for a while. Capcom isn't just rewarding the player for being aggressive anymore, they're conditioning them to be aggressive. Anyway, here's a video on how Sunbreak did something that genuinely shouldn't be possible.